want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for themselves. Hey, everybody. Clark Fredericks here with another episode of Free Like Me podcast. Guests come on, speak their truth, and leave free like me. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Please hit the subscribe button and share them if you find them interesting and helpful. This week, I have Steve Cederquist on. You may recognize his beautiful little face from the Flipper Flop show on HGTV. When I was locked up in prison, I watched that show religiously because it took me out of my environment, and it just gave me hope that I could, just go in a new direction. And I would see Steve on the show, and he was the contractor working on doing the remodeling on the show. And little did I know that Steve has quite a history under his belt, and I feel a kinship with him, a brothership, because our lives were very parallel in a lot of ways. And I'm excited to have him on. He also wrote a book that I read a few weeks ago called Get Out Alive, and it details the first half of his life. And he's working on a new book, Got Out Alive, which will be coming out shortly. So I'm excited to have Steve on. Steve, welcome, bud.
Clark, thank you, man. Thanks for having me. I really do appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. We found each other on Instagram and struck up a conversation, and lo and behold, here we are on the podcast.
Here.
And I'm super pumped for this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, you see somebody on TV and you're like, oh, they have to be well-adjusted and their life had to be perfect. And, in order to make it onto TV, they had to live the Beaver Cleaver life growing up. And then I looked into you, and it was anything but the Beaver Cleaver life.
No, it was definitely not the Beaver Cleaver life. It was, not that at all. I mean, even when I was in Hollywood younger, when I was, my younger days, it was different because I didn't even use then. It was funny because when I was working, I did some work for Paramount, and my dad did set work and stuff like that. And, I'm on the sets with and with like wholesome shows. Like I'm on like at Paramount, the set I was on, the stage I was on, they had, all these different shows you're on set. And there's like, Family Matters with Michael J. Fox, and I'm running into him like daily, chatting it up with him. And then the next set over here is Webster, and I'm hanging out with Webster, and, then we go to the Taxi set and we're hanging out with DeVito and Tony Danza, and I don't know, it was just different. And then we went over to another set. I started working on another set with Hardcastle and McCormick. Brain fog on him. Who was the guy that? Oh my God, totally forgot his name. The guy did Family Affair. Buffy. Come.
I can't think of it either.
What was his name? God, totally spaced on his name. Brian Keith. And I didn't use. And then I got, introduced to drugs, and wow, it just changed my life. I never thought that I would have been, it's just weird. I don't know. Can you relate with that?
Yeah. I had periods of my life that, you think things are going to go great, and then you get off the rails, and before you know it, a decade or two passes, and you're like, what the hell did I just do? I lost myself. How the hell did that happen? And drugs contribute to that, obviously, to losing yourself.
Let me ask you a question. Just it came from me because I remember, I was detoxing on the county floor of Orange County Jail. And I hadn't, I'd been using it, a couple of times you stop, you think you could, cure yourself, I'm cured, I'm fixed, and then, next time he shows up, you're like, oh, okay, I'm good. I'm fixed. But I remember, having that moment of clarity, a little more and more each time, like each day. And like after like 6 months, I'm like, how the hell did I get here? I mean, it literally was, I struggled with that, I think, more than anything. I thought like all these truths came like, wow, how did I, what? You just kind of go, that it was like you lived in a parallel universe. It was weird because you're like, I don't remember living like that, and like, what was I doing? And I don't know. It just was weird. So
Yeah, well, I detoxed on a floor of a suicide cell in jail, and
that's crazy.
just uh, hearing conversations that didn't exist. I had black objects swirling around my cell, and I'm just like swatting at them, and just the body aches and the misery and just the paranoia and anxiety and depression. Just thinking life was over for a long time. That
Yeah, it's good that your creator had a different idea. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
To change things up. I kind of, I thank God every day. I wake up and I usually, people ask me how do I wake up, how do you wake up every day so energetic? And I'm like, well, on my knees. They're like, oh, you're praying? I'm like, no, because I'm old and I'm sore, from either
Well,
working out or
we'll get to that because I wake up and do the. I was on my knees this morning. It's just, and
okay.
it's not like I got a lot of followers who are atheists, and they just when you have abuse happen, it's a soul killer, and it puts that dividing wall between a higher power and yourself, and people have a hard time getting past that, and but I do the same thing. It's not overly hokey religious. It's getting on my knees to God and just saying thanks for a new day, thanks for the safety of my family. I'm blessed to be sober. I'm blessed to be helping people, and that's my morning and nightly prayers. Very similar probably to what you're doing.
I used to tell people I have a lot of friends that are atheists, and I have a lot of friends that are Muslims and sheiks and everything like that. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, hey, look, whatever works, man. If like I used to do I used to do these big rooms and speak. They'd invite me out like every third Tuesday of the month, and I would talk anywhere from who was ever in the room, 10 people to 500.
Right.
And I had one lady get mad at me one time. It's funny because I brought one of my pastors with me, and he's like, yeah, I want to hear you speak. And I'm like, cool, come on, right along, let's go. So we rolled up there. I remember this lady got really mad, and she's like, I just want to punch you in the face for mentioning Jesus. And I'm like, well, that's my God. I go, if your God is the doorknob, I'm cool. I don't care if you worship the idol temple of a bottle of water. Whatever works, whatever gets you to that point, and that's who you identify with. I'm cool with that. I don't really care. I mean, that's on you. You invited me here to talk my story, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't whatever. You know what I mean? It's like people do
Yeah,
believe what you want to
people
believe,
like
man.
they get they get angry at you, and it's just like,
They do.
and I said in a podcast I did, I'm like, look, if eating strawberries changed the inside of you, if you were harboring hate and ugliness and rage and anger, and a bright red sweet strawberry changed all that inside, then wonderful for you. If me getting faith changed all that hate and rage and anger and violence I had, and it just made me fill with love and peace again, why are you angry at that? If it's a strawberry for you, God bless you. I don't care.
I think it's weird because I think that when you get people in a room and they're just fresh into they're in detox or they're like just coming out of they're doing their 30-day. I think that you got a lot of you got. I mean, come on, we have a lot of unresolved stuff. So I give them a little grace. I don't like. I don't. I just like, hey, whatever, dude, whatever. Don't hit me. Because I'd have to hit you back, and I don't want to do that. But I don't know. I kind of look at it more like, I just kind of meet people where they are, and I've kind of lived. It's funny because I was hanging out with this big celebrity in Hollywood a couple weeks ago, and he's pretty big time, an A-lister, and we're friends, and we went by a liquor store, you know, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna go inside and get something to drink. You want some chips? Or I'm like, hey, yeah, just grab me, you know, grab me a water and whatever. And there was this homeless guy out front, and he was, you know, he was kind of half out, half in, and so I got out of the car and started rapping with the dude, you know, and he comes back out. He's like, dude, what are you, you know, when I come back to the car, he's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing, dude? He's like, well, you're, you know, talking to this guy. And I'm like, okay, talking to a guy, a human, a fellow human. What's up? And I told him, I said, dude, here's the bottom line, bro. You and I, Clark, you and I especially are no better than him.
Right.
You know, the guy that's still suffering. We're blessed that we're not there anymore. We're blessed that we're, you know, in a better place because there's a better plan. And we know that, but we got to share that. We got to, like, you know, we got to identify with people and just, you know, kind of meet them where they are and be like, hey, dude, you know, there's a better life. I met this kid the other day at Starbucks. This kid, it's a good looking kid, man. He was about probably 20, 21, 22. Good looking kid, blonde, you know, good looking, built, you know, look good and everything. I walk up and I'm like, dude, what's up? You know, he was asking for money. I'm like, dude, you want to break some bread? Let's have a chat. And so I bought him a coffee and I bought him a sandwich from Starbucks and we just chatted it up. And I'm like, what's up? Where are you at? You know, and are you an addict or what? He's like, oh, dude, he was just, you could tell he was dealing with some mental challenges. And I'm like, well, I can help you get in a place. And he was like, no, dude, I really like the freedom of being out. And I'm like, it's going to wear on you hard, quick, dude. I said, you know that, right? I mean, it may seem cushy, but it ain't, man. It's going to age you quick. It's going to be a problem. You're going to be taken advantage of. It's going to be an issue, dude. You know, and he didn't want to hear it, you know, but like I said, you can't judge. You just have to be like, well, okay, cool. As long as you at least, you know, showed them you know that they're loved and they're cared about, and you know have little something in your heart for them. I think it maybe, you know, you never know. Maybe that'll affect him. Maybe when I drove away, maybe that affected him. I haven't seen him since, so maybe.
Yeah. Right.
Oh.
You know, I did it's a real popular podcast called Soft White Underbelly. And it's you know, they got over 5 million subscribers, and he's out in LA. His office is in Skid Row, and he gets people, you know, on the outskirts of life, crazy stories, you know, but most of when he interviews the people on Skid Row who are homeless, like you talking about this guy, a lot of them, you know, don't want to. They they say the exact same thing you just said. I like the freedom of being on the street, and the guy, you know, it's just like most of these people have been abused, and horrible abuse, and they don't feel they deserve more, and that's what it comes down to. You just don't feel you're worthy of anything more than being an animal on the street. And trying to get, and like you said, if you just put somebody into a brand new place who's an active addict and who has that mindset of I don't deserve anything better, it's not going to work for them. It's going to fail. You know, you have to treat them for what happened to them early on and get them to have a better picture of themselves before, you know, you can put them into a place and they succeed.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation. You know, you know, I drive by these, you know, California, you know, back in, I think it was back when Reagan was the governor here, which was that 70s, I guess, or whatever that was. He closed down a lot, not closed down, but he cut out a lot of funding for mental health. And I drive by these mental hospitals. There's one right by my house. There's one in Costa Mesa where I live. There's one right down the street. It's literally it's just only like a 300 bed unit place there. And it's kind of tucked in the back. You know, it's really don't know about it. It's not even occupied. They only did a little thing during COVID to kind of open it back up. But you drive by these mental hospitals that are like, they look like something out of the 40s. They're just dilapidated. And there's one in San Bernardino. There's one in Norwalk. And I always marvel at that. I always think, like, you know, because we're spending billions and billions of dollars, and the big B word, billion, you know, and it's not working what they're doing. I'm just like,
I've actually looked into like California and it's just what you say. They're spending billions on their homeless programs, and it's just not doing a thing. It's just,
well, it's not. You can't even go to San Francisco anymore. I mean, I have friends who just moved out of there. Just they literally, I'm like, man, did you grab the flag on the way out? I mean, it's just like it felt like it was like leaving Cambodia, man, back in the late '70s after the war. It's like run and grab on the helicopter and get out. I mean, it's bad. You can't. I mean, there's so much like, I mean, excrement on the street
I think,
when you walk down.
dude, I was just gonna
You have
say.
to navigate.
I
You
was
have
just
to
gonna say
navigate.
somebody started an app that has the streets of
Yeah,
San Francisco with the worst feces on the streets to avoid
that's
them.
dude, how does that
What
not
happened?
register? How does that not register in like the mindset of somebody like running a government
Right.
and being like, this is a problem? I mean, when you've got every business shutting down, you've got a lot of them. I mean, most of them in downtown down there in San Francisco, even the big malls down there that used to be a pretty pristine place to go, they're all shut down. Everybody's out
It's
because
crazy. And
you
that
can't
was,
do
I've
anything.
been out to San Fran 3 times, and it was the most beautiful city in the world. The
Yeah,
streets
right.
on the water go down to the wharf. And then now I wouldn't even I was out there 3 times 20 years ago. Now
Hmm.
I like you said, it sounds like a war zone.
No, I wouldn't go down there again. I
It's
have no desire
insanity.
to go back there.
The
I mean,
the
it
most,
used to be cool.
you said in your story, you went from the nicest house on the block to when you started doing crystal meth, your house became the worst. And that's what's happened to San Fran. It's just like it went from
Oh yeah,
the most beautiful city in the world to now it's just destroyed. And who
yeah.
thinks that's all
It's
right?
interesting. I don't under and I I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. Always have been. And I don't understand like if something's not. It's just like a job. It's just like employees we've had, probably you've had, I've had. Hey, look, if it's not working out, cut your losses and move on, dude. Like find somebody else.
I would say the
And I
same.
kind of
Like
wonder like.
I had a tire retreading shop, and I would tell the guys when I hired them, I'm like, look, if you want to leave, this is your life. It doesn't have to be ugly. Just come to me and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I get it. It's your life. Move on. Go have fun. Life is too short. And I would tell them that. And yeah, I never had any problems with people leaving. You it's just
I
like
think that in politics, it's just like I think if we just blurred the party lines and just actually listened to people who had good ideas, and like we kind of like and kind of aligned with the other ones, and just I don't know. I meet with politicians all the time, and like we were going to do a show in San Bernardino and about housing, housing homeless, and I'm literally sitting in the mayor's office. Funny story. I'm sitting in the mayor's office, and it was the new mayor. The other mayor thought he was going to get reelected. He didn't. So we meet with the new mayor, and he's like, "Well, we're going to house these people." And I'm literally looking over, and like next to the deserted mall, and to come to find out, nobody who works in the city lives in the city because it's so friggin' dangerous. So everybody boogies out at 5 o'clock. They're all like, "Peace out," get out of the city. It's bad. And I look at this hotel. It's like looks like it's and I look at him, I looked at the hotel, I go, "What's up with the hotel, dude?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "That looks like a deserted, like 8-story, 10-story hotel." He goes, "Yeah, it's deserted." I'm like, "Hello? Why don't you take that, rehabilitate that, and use it literally for people like intake for recovery, like intake, like a 3 day, and then gradually move them up the floors as they progress. If you get somebody good help they need, get them in a program, they start working the steps, they start doing what they're supposed to do, and then they transition to that next 3 months. They're going into jobs or job training, and then they go into job search and they find a job. Then they go into maybe temporary housing, and you kind of work it that way. Where you keep it all combined. You put security in there, you put mental health services in there, instead of spending all this money on stupid things like buying motels and converting them for $400,000 a room. It's like, dude, I wish I was out in that game in the construction field, but and could make it something viable that can work, and get these people trained and get them back out there and become productive members of society.
Right, right. Well, we got a little sidetracked from your demise, your destruction, and your redemption. So let's talk about Steve for a minute, because we could
Okay.
do another podcast about, about what we're talking all day long. I love
Yeah.
talking about because it's just, I mean, it just seems so basic and plain, and the way it's being done is just insanity. Like, and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. You can't look at San Francisco or LA and be like, yeah, this works. This is good. Everything's cool. The way, what the governor's doing is good. The mayors are doing is good. It, no matter
No,
what side you're on, you have to look and say, like, what have we done here? We're ruining this gorgeous state.
yeah, it's crazy. I never would have thought it would be getting as bad as it is. Hence why we're doing the new show. We're doing this show, and I'm running up against a little wall. With a new show about housing. My term was transition homeless. I'm having a rough time passing that word because they don't really want me to use that word because I guess it interferes with just equal right. I don't know. It's just, I don't like dealing with all that. I'm
I
writing a
have zero
storyline.
patience for that too.
Well, I'm rewriting the storyline now. So the storyline now, it'll there. I've got a surprise in there that we're going to do it, and it's going to be an 8-part docuseries, and it's going to show that people that actually get help and people that seek it out and actually work a program and work on their issues, and start to heal and transition into wanting to become a better version of themselves, can go into a lower cost housing option. And what we're doing is they've got 3 houses in downtown Orange. They're all being restored. We haven't started construction yet. Well, I'm not doing any of the construction. I'm just doing the filming. And then in the back, there's 3 ADUs. The only thing I'm asking for is that we get at least, because I think that we treat our veterans in this country like crap, and I hate that. I just think these people put their lives on the line for you and I to be sitting here like we are. And I want two of the houses in the back to go to homeless veterans, and then I want to I've got another friend of mine who does a rescue for homeless animals. And then she takes the worst of the worst. She goes to the kill shelters and gets the ones that are like the broken arm or the ones that like want to bite everybody, and she rehabilitates them. She does like the Caesar Milan on them, dog whisperer thing, and she gets them better, and she brings them, and they're so grateful. These dogs are amazing, and I would like to create, my vision of this whole thing is creating like a community, and filming that is how a system that can work. And you build it with a community that people want to be there. They're not people like, oh, nope, got to be here. Here, let me drop you in with a crane. I reference it to the claw game. When you go to a restaurant, they got the claw game. I'm kind of addicted to that, by the way. I got to bring my one. I do. I feel like a freak when I go around handing out stuffed animals to people. But and I make Rocio do it. I make my girlfriend do it because I don't want to be that creeper guy. Like, hey, you want a doll? Hey, you want a stuffed animal? To the little girl. So I make Rocio do it. But yeah, it's going to be a show that actually shows it's something that can work, and I know it will work because they're having a community resource right there. So if there's any slippage, which I'm sure there will be, with people kind of adjusting, to their own place, and like they're having that anxiety moment, we get. And I think this is going to be something that works. So this will be our first docu-series for this one in this area, and then we're franchising it, and we're going to do them all
Let's
over
see
the
what
country.
happens with it, right? Yeah.
Oh, it'll do great.
Sounds
We'll do good with it.
awesome. All right, let's talk about Steve. Um,
Okay.
what year did you grow up? Probably the same year as me. I'm 58. How old are you?
I'm going to be 64 next month.
Okay, so you grew up,
64. So I grew up, yeah,
late 60s, 70s as a kid, early 70s.
more, yeah, late 60s, 70s. 70s were my crazy time.
And you're out in California, and your parents divorced when you were a fairly young kid, like around 2.
Yeah. Mom and
And and
dad, mom and dad split up.
and you mentioned in your book your mom had mental health issues, and drank a lot, also, right?
Yeah. She, I think, she did. She drank a lot. She drank a lot. And I think that attributed a lot to, and I owned it, my own, you know, thinking that things were okay because, we learn, children emulate, where we're, what we grow up with. So I thought it was normal behavior, the drinking and the drugs and the crazy stuff that was going on, when I was around it all with my sisters and, not to say my sisters used, but there are a couple of their friends, heroin people and stuff like that. And I didn't really understand it, but I was around it.
Did your mother get into drugs also?
No, she
It's
really
more
didn't. She was
more
more
heavy
a
drinking.
drinker.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a drinker. Yeah,
And didn't drinking contributed to her demise?
yeah. My mom passed when she was 50. She was like 54, 53, 54 years old, and she had gone back to drinking. And she had like she died like my best friend died. They just, their bodies just like
Gave out.
kaput, and that was it. Like, hey, we're done. You spun us out too much. We're good. And then she crashed and burned right there in her little trailer that she was living in down in Newport Beach.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a year ago February, I buried my brother. I came home, found him dead on our kitchen floor. Tried
Mm,
giving him CPR
sorry,
until the
man.
paramedics arrived, and it's the same thing. He had unresolved trauma from his childhood and took it out by drinking, and drinking and diabetes did him in.
Oh
Uh,
man, yeah, that'll definitely do you in with the diabetes too. And
yep.
my best friend, I lost my best friend a few years ago, and and it's funny because I predicted it to him. I told him, I'm like, hey, dude, you need to reconcile with your daughter. You need to. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're gonna die, homie. I mean, like straight up. I mean, he
Right.
was my hard money lender, but he'd been my friend since 17, and a very successful guy. But the last 3 years were pretty rough for him. And I predicted. I said, you're going to die within 6 months, dude. Almost to the word. But 7 months later, he died, and we
Wow.
found him. And it was same thing, man. It's just yeah. It
Yeah.
wasn't. It's not pretty.
Yeah. I mean, my brother's death was like fuel for starting this podcast, and it was to I want to try to prevent as many other early deaths as I can by people just harboring shame and pain. And, so the motto is come speak your truth and be free, and, so he fast tracked me starting this podcast.
Right on. I love that.
Yeah. So early on, you had a paper route, and this led to an interaction with a gentleman who took advantage of you.
Yeah, it was. I was 13, and I was I used to do a paper route for the Daily Pilot of all papers here in Orange County. And yeah, I became friends with a lot of my people I would deliver the paper to. My route wasn't super big, unless it was Sunday morning. Remember how big those Sunday papers used to be?
Yeah, I had
Yeah,
a
those
paper
things
route
used to be
too.
like yellow pages, man. They were like,
Right.
I'd be like, trying to I have to go back to my house and get more, and be out at 4 in the morning. And yeah, I became friends with this older gentleman in a trailer park right on one the route. And yeah, he was super friendly. He used to feed me, be nice to me, and then one day it just turned. He just felt attraction towards me, and you know and uh, you know came on to me and seduced me and abused me for a little bit of time.
Yeah, yours was a customer in your paper. Mine was my Boy Scout leader. Did you ever tell anybody back then? And I say this because 9 out of 10 childhood victims remain silent. So did you fall into the 9%, or did you fall into the one, or the 9 out of 10?
You know, I told the only person I didn't tell my parents or anything like that, but I told my boss who is the paper route guy. And I just said, dude, I felt like like it felt weird because it was like it felt good, you know what I mean? But yet I knew, and like in my heart it was wrong. I felt like, wow, this isn't right. I'm 13 years old, and it was weird. He made me feel like something I'd never felt before, but yet in my heart I was like, wow, this is. So I didn't feel comfortable, delivering his paper anymore. So I told my manager, I said, hey, I'm just this one customer. I don't want to And he was like, "What's up?" And I'm like, he really had to pry it out of me. And I'm like, "Look, it was just, he touched me in a weird way and I just don't feel comfortable." And he's like, What happened?" And I told him, and, I guess he went over there and had a chat with him, and I don't know what happened, uh, but I didn't deliver it. And that, I actually didn't even do that whole complex anymore. He gave it to somebody else. Um, and just moved on from it. I didn't even deal with it, or even after that moment, I had suppressed that for so long. It changes. It just changes your sexuality. It's a lot changes with that when that happens to you. Because then you wonder, like, hey, why did that feel good? Why did that? And you have to, like, it's a lot of soul searching. You know what I
It's
mean?
very
Because
conflicting, and
it is. It's
yeah.
it's very conflicting, because you just, and then going to jail, and you just, like, there's a lot of, like, what am I? Am I bisexual? Am I? You don't know how to really identify. It's like, it's a weird thing. I finally got some counseling on it, later in life, and I felt like I was able to process a lot of it, understand me, understand my sexuality, understand more about me as a human, and understanding that, I'm not, whatever choices I make are my choices, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, or whatever. Just, I always, what I've learned in anything that's happened to me, it's just like, own what you can. Don't own everything. Own what's yours, and try to process, and then you take that and learn to, don't feel guilty about it, try to release it, to the universe. But in a way, I've used it to help other people, because I've come across other victims,
Right.
and have come clean with me because of the book. I've had people reach out to me and be like, "Hey, dude, this happened," or a girl came to me, and I'm like, I'm probably not the right person to talk to you, because, I mean, I don't. I always even kind of felt like that in meetings, like, or whatever, and sponsors, like, it, girls, like, would, like, "Oh," I go, "Don't. It's probably better to talk to a girl about that." And I don't mean to be things, but when we're, like, people in recovery, we're just, it's better to deal with men and women with women. I truly feel that, even with sponsorships, I think it's key to. I think it's key to being able, because I think you could relate more, and be more open and forthright. Does that make sense without any
Yeah.
weird intentions coming out?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think harboring that shame and confusion opened up the door to later on drug abuse?
Oh yeah,
Had to be a
yeah. I think
contributing
it.
factor.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think it had a lot to do with just being not not really wanting to address other things than that, and losses, and just a lot, navigating a lot. I think it, drugs. When I got introduced to drugs, it was such, gosh, how do I say it in a way more of like an escape.
Right.
It numbed the pain so well for so long. It's like, I tell people, I did drugs until drugs did me. You know, um, I
I
approached.
say drugs work until they don't anymore.
Yeah,
They work in the
exactly.
beginning. That's the problem.
Exactly, false sense.
Yeah.
But you end up making so many crazy things. It's funny, because when I wrote the book, I tried to be, you know, I had a friend of mine help me write it, and because she's more eloquent with the words, I speak like a trucker, and, like, I I'm just me, and I'm kind of that. I've always been the same way. It's funny, because Tarek and I used to have, when Tarek was kind of going through his stuff, and, his pain meds, and all the stuff he wrote about in his book. I feel free to talk about it now. We had a real, and that's a real relationship, because how I am, and how I am with my friends and stuff. We don't put up with shit. It's just like, we tell each other, like, "Look, dude, I'm at a bakery, bro. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you like it is. You don't like it? FO, I mean, and same way with me. And they tell me the same thing. They call me out all the time. Like, I have a friend, like, it's funny, like, I'll invite him to a barbecue or something. He's like, "Who's going to be there, dude?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just inviting some friend." He goes, "Dude, don't bring your dog and pony show." I'm like, my talking pony. She goes, all your celebrity friends, don't bring them. I'm not into all that. And so I have friends that are the real and talk it. So when I wrote the book, I tried to, it was a lot of editing because I didn't want to put the blame on my stepmom, my sister, my stepsister, anything like that. I wanted to be more like, well, maybe it was me, but I think that, when like my stepmom and my stepsister, they, they didn't grow up in that environment. They didn't understand it. So I didn't feel there was not a acceptance. I feel with them. They were more like, oh God, we have to see you, you know, every other weekend or whatever it is. And it was always awkward, and even living with them, I lived with them for 1 year. My mom couldn't handle it. So third grade. And I just felt, and then I moved in with him after, the New York incident, having to move away real quick and move in with my dad. So 16, and then I boogied at 17. I was like 17 and a half. I ran away from home. I stole the neighbor's car because they took away my car because of my grades. And I stole the neighbor's car. Well, they were selling the car. I kind of borrowed it. I said, can I take it for a test drive? And I never brought it back. So, well, we do things we're not proud of, but I think trying to own it, and in doing so, I thought I was doing the right thing by not saying, "Hey, look, guys should have been more accepting and like try to understand it." And I think looking hindsight out of it now, I don't regret it. But like I was telling you in the pre-interview, we were talking, and I remember being at my cousin's daughter's wedding in Laughlin last year, and we went, and my aunt, my dad's sister, she's 90 something, 96 years old, almost 97, I think now. And I'm going to go see her this summer. She's such a sweetheart. She's in a wheelchair. And I remember her rolling up. She's like, come here, come here. And I'm like, oh, Aunt Nancy, hi, how are you? My gosh, it's been, 5 years since I've seen you. How you doing? She goes, no, come closer. And I'm like, what's up? She goes, I read your book. And I said, oh, great. What'd you think? And she goes, why were you so fucking nice? And I was like, my 96-year-old grandma, aunt, I'm like, oh, dang. She just, she just put me on blast. I'm like, what? And she's like, you were too nice. She goes, you should have spoke your truths, And I was like, coming from someone of that age who knows me and read the book and did that, inspired me. Kind of like, like your inspirations, things that inspire us to do what we do. It's inspired me to write a little bit more unabridged, kind of more real, kind of more me, kind of just the unabridged part, the things that I didn't really talk about in the recovery book, things that, that I ended up doing, and, crazy stuff, the more crazy, and just about me more who I am today. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a little bit more freer, but do you ever have those moments where you wrote something and then you kind of go, gosh, and then somebody calls you out on it and you're like, dude, you should have done that. And I don't know, maybe it's coming out, maybe, because you've got, your docu series coming out. So I'm sure that, let me ask you a question in your docu series when you did that, because when I wrote the book, did you have to, I don't know if this happened to you, but it happened to me, is like you relive all this and it really starts to mess with your head a little bit. Did you have any of that when you were going through your docuseries?
Yeah. I just had college friends into town over the weekend. They wanted to watch it, so I had them down for the weekend, and we watched it. And the second episode deals with the abuse, and we have actors that portray my abuser and actors that portray me as a child, and just watching it, it's tough. That second episode, it's difficult. Yeah, for sure. So the same thing. Yeah.
We're sadists in a way, but it's a message. I mean, seriously, think about it. I mean, like we write these things, we do this, and it's not because we want, like, here's the deal. I didn't make any money in the book. I had no intentions of making money in the book. I literally, they're like, oh, because I fired the first publisher I had because they didn't get it. They were like, oh, and I'm like, dude, you don't get this. I mean, I've got this in a school district now. I do speaking engagements with this now, and I pretty much give the book away. I mean, I don't like, I buy 5,000 copies at a time. I do it, and I will tell your people listening, if they want the book, hit me up. I'll send it to you. If you can't afford it, I'll send it to you. It's not a problem.
There you have it, people.
I feel that it's important to get the message out, and it's kind of like my way of giving back. It's like, I feel like, and I took long enough. I was not a good person, and I hurt a lot of people, and especially in my, that whole thing in the steps about the amends part. Jesus.
So take me into where the drugs took you to, and what drugs you were doing. Did you start off like as a younger kid smoking weed, like most people do?
No, not really.
No?
I didn't do, no. High school, I did a little bit, not much. I was more of a sports guy. I working out and doing the things I did. I got introduced to Coke. I went to a party with my then girlfriend, who became my wife at the time, and got introduced to Coke with a bunch of my weekend warrior friends. Like, these guys were ambulance drivers, part-time firefighters, just regular working guys. And I got introduced to cocaine that night, and I didn't stop. I mean, literally, it was on. And
Right.
but this what I really was intrigued about Coke in the very beginning was just the craziness and the sex. Sex was insane on Coke in the very beginning.
I equate it to like mental masturbation. Like it triggers something in your brain, just
oh my
mentally
God, it was
masturbates you.
insane. And then it gets very perverted. Then you start doing, sex became crazy. You start doing stuff, you just go, wow, I never thought I would do this kind of stuff.
Right.
And
I
what's up. Yeah,
I had this Steve. I had this priest on a couple weeks ago, who was an active alcoholic throughout a long portion of his priesthood, and he's still an active priest now. And he talked completely open and freely about everything, which I was surprised that he's still active now. But he said, he was raised, he didn't have abuse, but he was raised in a violent family, and it was always scary and just turbulent. And he said when he drank, it was like the angels sang to him. And I said, I know exactly how that feels, because that's what Coke did to me. The angels sang to me, and it sounds like you experienced the same thing.
Yeah, it was crazy. I ended up getting fired. I mean, it was just like Coke worked for a while, and then everything just fell apart probably within 2.5 years. Everything started falling apart. I got fired from the family. I got, every job I took, I'd get fired from. I had a boss I had one boss, and it was like one of those moments where I look back at it now, and his name was Bill Scruggs was his name. And if he does listen to this, I want to let him know that it was very meaningful. I mean, he knew what I was doing. I mean, I remember him used to tell me, like, because I was using Coke, and we were out traveling. I was working for an air freight company, and we were out traveling I was in Atlanta one day, and Chicago, I was all over, flying everywhere. It was traveling 20 days out of the month. And we'd share rooms. They were very cheap, so we'd have to share rooms. And I remember him telling me, he goes, don't bring any diseases to my room. And, and I remember him coming in the room one night, and I got these two chickies, in the bed, and, and we're just out. He was so pissed. And I remember at that Christmas party the next year, because sales plummeted for me because I was closing all these trade shows. I wasn't out activating, getting my customers and doing what I was supposed to do. And he gave me at the Christmas party in front of everybody and their family, the toilet bowl award. And it was literally a trophy of a toilet. And
it represented what?
That I was a horrible, like the worst sales of the year.
From the top to the worst.
I got the gold toilet, and I was so humiliated, but it was symbolic. It was like, but honestly, I look back at it now and I wish I still had that trophy, because I kind of look at it like how we, if you and I had to put our lives, like, how would we represent? Well, we won the toilet bowl award. I mean,
You
like,
need defining moments like that.
yeah, that's a defining moment. That's like,
Yeah,
that
you need
was like,
those.
it was, it messed with my head enough to make me start thinking. And I think a couple years after that is when I'd been arrested 100 times since then, and things started falling and losing jobs and losing my house and crazy stuff. And I it was a memory in my head that didn't leave, but it was a good start at, like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? What are you doing? And, like, you end up being stupid. And then, like I said, and my other defining moment was getting arrested. Like, this time seriously arrested, where they wanted to give me 9 years and all that. And I remember fighting it, not guilty, to all the nonsense. And I remember, in the book we highlight when my kids got taken away when I got arrested last. My kids
Yeah, talk
got
about
taken
that.
away.
That was the big moment for you on the side of
It
the
was
road.
it was my Garden of Gethsemane. I really felt.
So let me just set it up. You're arrested, and you're doing. They're taking you in a bus somewhere,
Yeah.
shackled up to another guy, and you look out the bus window, and what do you see?
Well, that was when I got arrested on December 2nd, 1992, 91. Sorry, 90. Wait, hold on. December 2nd, 90. I remember they got us all downstairs. They arrested a bunch of us gang members. And they were doing a big sweep. It was a multi-state and city sting operation, and they got a lot of
So
us.
hold on. So you go, you get involved with drugs. You're arrested multiple times. You get into a gang out in California,
Yeah.
and so this is where your life's headed. Multiple arrests, drug addiction, in a gang, and you're arrested again here. So I just want to set that up.
Yeah, yeah. This time it was real. This time it was a real arrest. I mean, like, I'd been arrested and convicted for other little small things, but little time in county. But this was big time, because I was technically out on bail. Well, my own recognizance, it wasn't really bail, but they considered it bail on bail of crime. So they got me on that. That had enhancements, and then they got me with a loaded firearm. They didn't catch me with drugs with a loaded firearm, but they had me with sales and a bunch of stuff. And so they had us downstairs, and they're loading up the van with a bunch of us. And I see them, child protective services marching my two kids out, and I see my 7th month pregnant wife, you know, that was horrific. That was like, you think you're invincible. I remember them kicking in my door at the motel, and I'm thinking I'm being robbed, because that's pretty common in the drug trade, being robbed. I have my gun out. They kick in the door. I've got multiple guns. Imagine a doorway with about 4 guns pointing at you, and I'm pointing a gun at them, and I don't know who. It's dark. I don't see them. They're screaming, "Put your gun down! Put your gun down!" And I'm like, "No, put yours down!" Right? Brainiac using. And then I remember I recognized one of the cops who had always been, like, super respectful and friendly to me. And he looks at me and he goes, "Steve, put your gun down." And I knew, it kind of clicked to me at that moment, like, oh shit, this is real. So I put my gun down. They came and bum rushed me, kicked me in the head a few times, put handcuffs on me, drugged me out. And I remember talking to, so the kids, I see the kids being marched out. And I just will fast forward real quick, because I went back and spoke to Officer Steve. His name is Steve. He ended up. I became friends with a lot of cops that arrested me. By the way, it's weird. I remember having lunch with him before he retired from the police department the city I was arrested in, and we were chatting it up. And he goes, the reason you're still here today, right? And I'm like, oh, because you told me to put the gun down. He goes, no. He says, we didn't shoot you because there was kids behind you in your bed. And I'm like, oh, that was a reality I had not thought about. It was another thing. It was just like crazy to think about that. But to go back a little bit on the bus ride. So I'm going to court a bunch of times, pleading not guilty, trying to fight this case, and getting drugs delivered in jail from the drug attorney and the gang jury. It's just crazy. I remember the bus pulled out or comes around, and here's Orangewood Children's Home where my kids were at. By the way, the longest residence at Orangewood Children's Home. They were there for like 18 months. And I remember the bus driving out, and I look over this little playground for the toddlers. And there's my 16, 17-month-old son sitting on the swing, just kind of hanging his arms down. All the other kids are playing, and I'm looking at this in slow motion. I look over, and the window's cracked open this much in the bus. I'm in this weird cage because I'm a red bander, because I'm a gang member. And I remember screaming through the window like, Gigi, I used to call him Gigi, Gigi. And he came running to the fence and put his arms out. I lost my shit, dude. I mean, I literally, I remember getting to the courthouse, and I remember they let everybody off the bus but me. And the cop comes over to the cage. He opens the cage, comes over, sets me down, and he goes, dude, I don't know what you did. He says, but you're a grown ass man. He says, but what you did to that kid, you need to make it right, because he does not deserve that. You do, because what you did, you own it, do it, handle it. Right. Defining moment. I was like, you're absolutely right. I
just
remember
like a light bulb went off.
It was like a light bulb got shot out of like literally, I thought I was smart. Light bulb got shot. Like, look what you did, doing the glass shards go all over you. And you're like, dude, what did I do? What did I do to these children's lives? It's like, we get so caught up in our disease. We get so caught up in the mix that we forget about the lives that we affect around us. So I made it a goal. I went to the judge, and we postponed, the trial got postponed until later. I wrote him a letter. He got the letter, Judge Cardenas, and I went back to court. They called me up alone in the courtroom, with just not even my attorney present. The district attorneys and the judge. And he just said, look, I got your letter, dude. He says, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to offer you something when you come up. You take it, you get out, you do what's right for those kids. All right, let's do it. So they brought me up, and, me and my smart ass moments, he says, all right, Steve, I've talked to the district attorney. We're going to offer you 4 years instead of the 9. And I said, okay. I go, hey, would you go for 2? I'm a negotiator, that's what we do. Right. And he's like, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? And I'm like, I need to get out and be with my kids. Like, what's up? Please, Your Honor, please. I'm not that same person. And he's like, if I give you 2, would you take the deal and get the hell out of my courtroom? And I go, I'll take it. So I took the 2 years, and then
he gave it to you. Wow.
Gave me the 2 years, man. And I remember, within 10 days, I was on that bus ride to state prison in Donovan State Prison. And I think I'm a tough guy. I think I'm, you know what I mean? And I'm not. When I get out, I remember getting that bus pulling up and the receiving and all the barbed wire and all those rifles pointed at you.
Dude, isn't that intimidating? I don't care
That's
who you are.
That's intimidating, dude. That's intimidating. And I've seen people, even on the 4-yard before I got classified, you're on the 4-yard with everybody. And I remember the first fight I got into was with my bunkie. He was an 18-year-old kid who tried to steal my cigarettes because I got a care package from one of the gang members on the 4-yard, and the 3-yard, level 3. And he brought me in. This kid wanted to take my shit. And I'm like, dude, you ain't taking my shit. He was in for murder. He was doing life. And I knew when I fought the kid that I had to take him out. Like, I had to knock him out, make sure he was out, because he was going to kill me. What do you have to lose? What were they going to do? Give him more time,
Right.
And I earned a lot of respect from that. I remember coming out the next morning and people were like, what's up? I'm like, what's up? So I ended up becoming a shot caller, and I really didn't want that tag, because I remember going to court. I come back from my kids, and the judge told me, he goes, if you're still in a gang, because I was going to court for my kids about every 3 months. So they'd gaffle me up and, take me on a 3-day or a Gilligan's Island tour, and through every prison in California in March, it was a nightmare. But He told me, he goes, if you're still in the gang, and I'll know if you are, he says, I will not get your kids back to you. Your kids will be adopted by another family. So I got jumped out, and that
You had
was
to go. You had to go to the gang and say I want out, which is not an
no.
easy thing.
I went to the fellows because I was a shot caller, and and you go to the fellows and just say, look, this is why, and I didn't want to die
They
for
can't
it.
let you just walk away free. They
No, they
got to
don't.
give you.
No,
So they gave you a beat down, right?
it's like the mob. You're either in or you're out.
Right.
And there's no happy medium. But they didn't kill me. They put me in a hospital for a few days. I got my shit beat. I got the shit beaten out of me, dude. I mean, big time. But I didn't lose their respect because when I came back to the yard, they totally had my back and respected me. And even guys tried to start crap with me. I was going 2 months before I was supposed to be paroled. I remember my captain. I went to work for the captain, and I was the captain's porter. And I worked night. I was in a workers dorm, and like no drama. It was just everybody working. We're all trying to get out. And I remember one day, like not even like the morning of, and I was supposed to be transferred to go to work furlough, and the sirens go off in the yard, and everybody hits the ground because all the rifles get out. They're like, "You moved, you're dead." You know what I mean? And they even charge you for the bullet. And I'm like, I see the captain and the sergeant walking towards me on the yard, and I'm like, oh fuck. I'm looking up, going, damn it, somebody's messing with my time. You know what I mean? And I'm like, what? What's up? Sure enough, no, somebody put a shank above my bed in the light fixture, in the fluorescent fixture. They put a shank, a homemade shank, and it just, it is people messing with people. That's what they do. It's just they're jealous, and they knew it wasn't mine. They didn't even they said, look, we already know it's not, but we're getting you off the yard now. So they handcuffed me, pulled me off, stuck me in receiving, made me sleep on a friggin' wood bench for the night, and then I was out to work for the next morning. But if they hadn't known me, I would have gotten another 6 months, and I would have lost
Right.
my kids.
Right. Wow. And when you got out, then that took you in a new trajectory. And did you ever stumble with drugs again?
No,
That was it.
no, I never did.
You were woken up.
No, I saw the writing on the wall. I mean, I had nowhere to go. I mean, when I got out, nobody wanted me around. They were like, I had a friend in Costa Mesa let me sleep in the back of his old motorhome. It was deserted motorhome he had in his backyard. He's, no running water, nothing like that. And I used to, he'd yell at me every day. I had taken the bus trying to find jobs, and finally found a job. And every time I'd come home, he'd yell, and in a good way. He's still my best friend today. He'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you here? You got off work at 5 o'clock. Go get another job. How are you going to raise 3 kids, making $9 an hour or $8, whatever I was making at the time? And I was smoking at the time, and, I was so stressed out, like 6 cigarettes, and, and it was so mind boggling. And I put pedal to the metal, man. I finally, I saved up enough money to buy an old beat up truck. I started getting visits with my kids. I was able to talk to the judge and to give me a little time, and I was able to pull it all together. It was hard work, but no, I didn't. No, it's funny because I ran into one of the gang members. I was out. I literally just got my kids back. I barely had an apartment. I talked to a friend of mine to help me get an apartment and to get my kids. And I literally had a leather jacket on my thing and 2 shirts hanging in my closet and a couple of pairs of jeans. And I ran into one of the gang. He's like, hey, where are you living now? And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm right over here. And we came back that night. A place had been broken into, and they stole my leather. It's symbolic when they steal your leather. It's a biker thing. It's what they do. It's fine. I knew what it was. I knew exactly what it was. I was just like, okay, you stole my leather. Good for you, dude. You didn't steal my pride. You didn't steal my kids. You didn't steal my freedom. And I remember, the guy that hooked up with my ex-wife, he tried to put a hit out of me in jail. And I remember getting a phone call. I'm living in this place with my kids, and I get a phone call from this rival gang, this girl from the rival gang. And she says, you ratted me out. I'm going to kill you. And I said, good for you. You want to kill me? Come kill me now, because I'm not the guy who ratted you out. And she goes, I know where you live. Or you live at the corner of 2nd and Knott Avenue. And I'm like, yeah, I live right there. I live right there in the first unit, right there, right there. And she's like, I said, why don't you come right now? I said, I'm gonna go stand in the corner and wait for you. And sure enough, within 10 minutes, she showed up. I'm waiting out there, and she got out with
Really?
two other bikers. She looked at me and she goes, you ain't the dude. That's coming out in the other book. And I'm like, I know I'm
Wow.
not the dude. It was the guy who hooked up with my ex. Just that I tell people, I will tell you this. And people, and I say this on my message a lot to people, don't expect roses and everybody to be so loving and caring when you change your life from your behavior,
Bingo. Oh, people don't
because
like it.
they don't. They're not, because you hurt a lot of people and you pissed off a lot of people. And so what happens is we expect to get out. I hadn't paid my taxes. I had all this crap I had to, and that sends a lot of people back to the life, because they're just like, you know what? I didn't sign up
Gets
for
too
this.
overwhelming.
It's too overwhelming. You got to know that up front. Like, hey man, you're going to have that. You're going to get some records, but that's cool. You got some records to pay for, dude. But it's just one step at a time, man. They're not going to throw you in jail for it, But just do yourself a favor when you cash your paycheck. Don't put it all in your bank account, because they will take it. I found out the hard way. Uh, you know,
Uh,
I mean, it's all good, man. I mean, it's just I think you just have to pay the dues, right?
right. Yeah. You know, I sat in my prison cell and I'm like, all right, stupidly said, you know what? Life owes me. It was I got a raw deal getting molested and raped, and I went off the rails, drug abuse, drug addiction, getting involved with the mob, and you know what? And I've turned my life around. I think life owes me now. And when I get out of prison, everything will be great. It's just like a stupid drug addict thought for a second, and then, I quickly realized, like, life doesn't owe me shit. And anything I want, I have to work hard for, sweat and tears. And I'm the captain of my ship now, and I'm responsible for myself and responsible for my life, and whatever I want out of it, I got to make it.
You got to push every day as hard as
Right.
I had a good conversation with Ray Lewis, and from the Ravens,
Yeah.
and I love Ray. I mean, I'm not a Ravens fan. I mean, I respect the team. I have much respect for the coach and for John and everybody like that. And I'm a Raider fan, believe it or not. And but I love the Ravens in regards to their drive and who they are. And Harbaugh is just amazing coach, and I like them and the Steelers. I love this is my wall of people I respect, like LeVon Kirkland. Gave it every day. I mean, he went out there. Ray Lewis. Everybody out here. I mean, everybody in my wall here. These are guys I look to that are just like, they don't give up. They don't. George St. Pierre, like these guys, you just don't give up. And I remember speaking with Ray, and he's like, dude, you fight for it, fight through it, do whatever you can do. I just started getting back at the gym, and I kind of, like, can't believe how weak I am now. You know what I mean? And it's just, we got to fight for it, man. You have to fight every single day. You have to fight for it. You want it, you have to fight for it. You can't give up. You have to give it 110%, morning, day, night, whatever it takes, and whatever you're doing, even if it's a little shitty job you got, that's okay, man. Give it your 100%. There's always something better on the other side. But if you give in and be like, oh yeah, it's my job, that's BS. You know what I mean? You got to give it. And I think that's same with recovery, same with our mental health, same with everything, man. You just have to get it. You're not getting it, you're not going to get it.
Well, I like to close out by asking the guests, what steps have you taken to get where you're at, to remain free? Do you have a daily routine? And so you're going into that without me having even asked you. So giving it your all. I hear you mention, it sounds like you mentioned AA. Was that part of your life, or is part of your life? So share with the audience what you've done to remain on this new trajectory and not going back to the animal life you were living.
Oh, I'm still an animal, man. Don't come on, brother. You and I get together sometime, man. Hit the gym, and chat it up some more, like in person, man. I think you and I'd be best friends, man. I really, you and I have just a lot of the same traits, and and I follow you a lot and see what you're at, and I think that you and I are kind of the same, built the same way. And like, I don't do 12 step. I mean, there's church, there's the one step. And here's what I tell people. I beat my own drum, in regards to how I get there. Each day is different for me. I'm like a chameleon. I figure it out, because some days, some things don't work for me. Some days, other days I don't. I have my own demons and my own battles, and I push through them. I remember where I was, where I never want to be. I have a best friend that I do call a sponsor. His name is Henry, and we have a call. What's called our call. So our call is, if we ever feel like using him or I, we have to call each other, and we have to say, hey, I want to go use, or I want to go. I'm just going to go get.
Has that happened? Have you had that thought in your head? Yeah, me too.
Of course I do. I mean, it's like
my mind will sometimes say, doing a couple grams of coke right now would be fantastic, and then I have to remind my mind, where that led us, though, right?
Well, here's what I had to tell you, an interesting story. I have a buddy of mine who owns a big weed company here in Orange County. They're huge. They're one of the biggest in the country. And I remember going to his Christmas party last year, and I'll tell you exactly what happened. They called me back in this room, like, hey, dude, come on back, and they dump a brick of coke on the table. I mean, like, and, I'm like, cool, so I'm like, my instincts, I was heading for that table. Right. And I literally felt, and this is no joke, and I know people, and I feel like I have a guardian angel. I truly do. And my guardian angel's got a sense of humor like me. So I felt a tug on my back, like, dude, what are you doing, dude? You know what I mean? And he had a door, and then he had a one light window next to the door. And I turned around, and I thought that window was the door, and it was my guardian angel. He's like, oh, you wanted to use again, huh? And I literally ran right into the window, broke my nose again. I had blood streaming down my face, all over my clothes. They all stopped and looked at me like, what the fuck? What? I'm like, I gotta go. And I remember driving home, and I got blood, and I ran into him, a few weeks later, and he's like, dude, what's up, man? You got the wall of shame, bro. And I said, no, dude, you got the wall of fame, bro. I go, let me tell you, dude, you have no idea. That was huge for me, because it's like, when you start doing the right things and you're heading in the right direction, you are going to get tempted, man. There's people that want to mess up your time, or mess up your life, mess up your sobriety, mess up anything they want. But as long as your headspace is like, man, like the phone call thing, I called Henry on the way home, and I told him what happened. He goes, yeah, you deserved it. I'm like, damn straight I did, dude. It was insane. It was such a defining moment, because it's like, we don't lose that instinct. I was going for it, dude. I was thinking a couple lines could do me, and I am so grateful for my guardian angel to pull me out of that and smack me into that glass.
That's what. So what was the tug you were feeling? Like a spiritual tug?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know I have a guardian angel, man. I know I do. I've been in some pretty crazy situations, and my guardian angel saved me a bunch of times, where I tell you, there's a plan and a purpose, because there's times I've, almost fall off a roof. I did fall off a roof once in 17 and broke my neck and my back, but I didn't die. And have you developed faith through your journey in life? I'm a total believer. Yeah, I'm not a big Bible thumper. I don't go around thumping Bibles at people like, my way's the highway, and right. I don't do the Joel Osteen thing, but I do take Joel Osteen's approach in regards to his. Have you ever heard his analogy of telling people, if you want to get people's attention, it's called the deposit theory, is you can't withdraw from an empty account. So you have to go into it with 5 deposits. Tell people like, hey man, you're amazing. Hey, you're this. And I tell people I speak with all the time, like, I try to put 5 positives before I take a withdrawal. It's
Like
what you
that.
got to do, man. You can't take it at an
Yeah.
empty tank. And I can't
Yeah.
come in thinking I'm holier than now, dude, because I'm not. I'm just me.
That's it. Me too. Do you have a daily routine? Like when you wake up, you do this, anything that sets your day in a right trajectory?
Been trying to get back to the gym because I think that
Right.
I need that discipline. It's I took some time off from that because when I fell off the roof a few years ago, I hurt my neck and my back, so I have a lot of issues with that. But I pushed through. You know, I start being a little baby, then I start talking to myself like I'm a little bitch. What am I doing? Like I get that. You know, I'm
Yeah.
hard on myself, dude. I get like, oh, you're gonna be a little bitch and not go to the gym this morning because your back hurts, you know. And I talk to myself, dude. My well, your CEO thinks I'm nuts. She's like, do you actually answer yourself, dude? And I go, oh, yeah, all the time. She goes, you know, that's the
Did you
first
see
time
my
being.
post? My post 2 weeks ago where I called myself a wimp over the sore on my foot.
Right?
I
I
had
go,
to.
do you answer yourself when you talk? Because I
Yeah, of
do.
course.
That's called pushing through, man. It's like it's. I'm a Gemini, so I've got 3 personalities. I tell all 3 of us, like, hey, we're going. No, we're not. Yeah, we are. You know, I'm just and we go and we work out, or I call up one of my friends. I go have coffee with somebody, like, or I go down to the liquor store and I see somebody's suffering. I'll shoot the shit for an hour and bring them something to eat, and
So,
I'm
so
real.
being open now and
Just being
not
open,
like
man.
Steve trying to do it all on his own. You communicate with people, and that's one of my big talk therapy is like number one.
I don't care who you are, man. I've talked to big time celebrities. I got friends and I look at them like they're, dude, you wipe your butt the same as I do, dude, and you fart like and you're the same as me, dude. You're no different. You make a hell of a lot more money than I do, but you're still the same as me, man. And I think that I've gained a lot of respect from that because I ended up, I get called a lot from celebrities and they're talking to their kids, like their kids on a wayward path. I had one happen last year, and they real quick. I'll just get to this, and there she's like, oh, my brother, blah, blah, and I'm like, have him call me. And he's like, oh, I'm stuck in what you call it. It's on a Saturday, and I'm like, yeah. What do you want me to do about it? Come pick you up? I can pick you up, dude. What do you want? You want recovery? What do you want? Help? He's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, I go, I'll send you a car right now, and then you're going to go to the Salvation Army over here in San Bernardino, and hopefully you'll get in before noon, dude. It's already 11:20, but I don't think you're going to make it. He's like, what if I don't make it? I go, I don't know, man. Bring a cardboard box. Sleep outside. I mean, and now this kid, he did it. He was mad at me, hated me for a minute. But this kid now, he's got his job back, got his kids back, just got married, had another kid, making 190,000 a year with the school district. I mean, he's killing it. And I think it's just being truth, man. Just being, be real to people. Don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I had a dude on 2 weeks ago who was a raging heroin addict, went to 12 rehabs, and the 12th rehab, the guy said, what do you think you're gonna do when your 30 days is up? And he's like, oh, I'm gonna go home. He's like, no, you're not. Like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm gonna send you to Salvation Army. And he's like,
Oh,
dude, that's for like street level homeless addicts. And he's like, what the hell do you think you are? You think you're better than that? He's like, your life, you're going to kill yourself. And he went to Salvation Army and it turned his life around. He
Salvation
had
Army
done,
is a great program.
eh, we all think we're better than the next person, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're a raging drug addict and you're doing crazy shit. You're no better than anybody else.
Yep. Absolutely.
I had a friend, one of my best buds when I got out, and he couldn't do enough for me when I got out of prison. Very successful guy, and he was having marriage issues and stepped out of the marriage, and it was really affecting him. And one of our this was a biker friend of mine, and one of our biker friends said to him, "You got to talk to Clark about this." And he goes, "No, I can't talk to Clark. I don't want him to look down at me. I respect him too much. I don't want him to think I'm a piece of shit." And it's just like, I am not going to look down at anybody, Steve. You're not in a position. I am not in a position. I know what the hell I did with my life, and it was disastrous. I am not going to pass judgment on anybody. and yet he wouldn't come to me, and he ended up hanging himself and killing himself.
Yeah, well, pride,
And I'm
man.
like, damn it, why wouldn't he talk to me about what he was facing? I'm not here to pass judgment on you, bro.
You know what? I go to their grave. I go to a lot of funerals, and I go to the grave. Sometimes people like that, and I'm like, it's unfortunate that they were too prideful not to have a conversation. I mean, sometimes these conversations get real and they get physical. I've had some to get, people thinking they're all that. I'm like, dude, you ain't shit, dude. I mean, I'm old man, dude, but I won't look down. No, dude, you got an issue. I tell a lot of young people that young family guys, the guys that are doing, with families and successful, and they're blowing it, man, blowing it, literally blowing it and blowing it, and it's just like, dude, you're going to lose everything, dude, everything. Man up, dude, man up. Stop being a pussy, man up. And I rub people the wrong way sometimes, but that's okay. I live with myself. You ask me how I start my day, I just be me. And like, if I offend somebody, oh well.
Right.
Can't do anything about it.
Early on when I got out of prison, I had all these, people reaching out to me. Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? And they were, wounded ducks, so I would stroke their back and placate them. And then I'm like, this isn't working at all. They're like, you gotta get tough with people, and I've gotten tougher with people. And, you're talking life or death situations. You got to be tough.
It is.
You can't pussyfoot around people.
You're not running a bakery, and you're not going to sugarcoat it. It's just be you. You just tell them that. Like, hey, look, this is, I'm Clark. Does it say bakery somewhere? Because I've got, dude, hold on. Okay. Can you read this?
This is not a bakery. I don't sugarcoat anything. If you ask for my opinion, then that's what you'll get. Don't be mad at me when it's not what you want to hear. Bingo. Perfect way to end this.
Perfect way to end it. Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time.
I feel like there's so much more we could have talked about. We may have to do a follow-up when your next book comes out.
Cool. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Appreciate for having me on.
All right. Hey, and you offered me something before we started. I'm going to take you up on it, so I'll reach out to you when we're done here.
Okay, cool. I'd love to hear. Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for being here.
All right. Appreciate you. Bye.
Yeah. And there you have it, everybody. Another edition of the Free Like Me podcast. Steve Cederquist, broken home, alcoholic mother, molested at an early age, drug addiction, gangs, prison, jail. You think nobody can come back from that? Yes, you can. Life is never over. It's your choice what you want to do with it. And he took his life in a new direction, never looked back. I took my life as bad as prison is for Steve and me. It's what saved us, what turned us around. I self-evaluated. He saw his kids outside of a prison bus. Can you imagine? And that was it. Took our lives in a new direction and never looked back. Not that we're not tempted, not that we don't have bad days, but going in this direction, being clear-headed, being sober, it's much better than the life we were living. So thank you, everybody. If you would hit the subscribe and share button, and we'll continue to grow this sucker, and we'll continue to change lives. Thank you, everybody. Peace.